In 1958-59, Richie Benaud was captain of Australia and conclusively stunned Peter May's side down under with a 4-1 victory. So in 1961, England were again trying to win the Ashes back. After a draw at Edgbaston, Laurie's batting and the bowling of Davidson and Mackenzie were decisive for Australia at Lord's. Truman's 11 wickets, though, did the trick on his native heath at Headingley, and so for the Old Trafford Test it was all square. Statham's 5 wickets and some solid batting gave England a first innings lead of 177, but Bill Laurie's century, reinforced by Davidson's 77 not out and a last wicket stand of 98, led Australia to a second innings total of 432. Still, it seemed that the clock was England's only enemy, as they chased 256 to win in 230 minutes. And even the clock lost its terrors when Ted Dexter was batting.
And it's Mackay, and an imperious stroke from Dexter, 4 runs to mid-wicket. It was a long hop, and Dexter moves to 69, and England moved to 143 for 1, and that must have narrowed the gap between runs and minutes still more. Dexter's 13th 4 in 69 runs. Yes, 113 runs wanted, 112 minutes, or 111, very nearly level. And Mackay comes in again and bowls, and Dexter's hit that high in the air. It's going to be 6 into the crowd. Is it? It is. Dexter 71, England 149 for 1. Jack, this is entertainment deluxe.
This is 100% good, Rex. Magnificent.
Yes, and now the run rate is under a run a minute.
But Dexter's rapid 76 kept England so well in the hunt that they didn't see the danger signs when Benaud started taking wickets bowling into the leg side rough caused by the bowlers' follow-throughs. Taking 6 for 70, he spun Australia to a 54-run victory, including the celebrated bowling of May behind his legs. Australia had retained the Ashes. The 1964 Ashes series was effectively won by a single individual innings, Peter Burge's 160 at Headingley. The weather again had an unfortunately large part to play in the outcome, so that the Headingley Test was the only decisive result, Australia winning by 7 wickets. Other events, though, have remained more in people's memories, like the huge scores in the 4th Test at Old Trafford, led by a double-century partnership from Bill Laurie and Bobby Simpson. But after Laurie's century, it was Simpson, the Australian captain, who went on to the triple century.
Dexter is at mid-off and close enough to have a chat with Price. What advice he can give him at this stage, I don't know, but whatever it is, here comes the next ball.
Might be advice for the next race.
Yes. Price again then comes in, bowls, and Simpson swings murderously at that. That's 4 runs on the onside. Right across the flight with a sort of cross-bat shot, with the ball fairly hummed between mid-on and mid-wicket, shot over the boundary rope away to our right. 4 more for Simpson, and what a glorious player he is when he produces his strokes like this. And all the more, in a way, irritating that for almost 12 hours he kept them locked up. But this is great stuff. The crowd are enjoying it, even with the despondent score on the scoreboard. Here comes Price. Bowls to him and he swings again, and where's that one gone? That's it's landed halfway to the boundary on the offside. Boycott's chasing after it, and it's just 2. He wasn't anywhere near the pitch of the ball to that, and he doesn't really mind, I'm sure. Well, Arthur Wrigley's drawn a red line through another record that has beaten Bradman, well, the previous shot actually beat Bradman's record of 304, made at Leeds in 1934.
Only one. That's not a record, that's the record.
The highest Australian score in England-Australian tests is now Bradman's 334, so he's got 24 more runs to beat that. Price again comes in, bowls to him short, he swings high, he's caught at the wicket, Simpson is out, the top edge, caught Clark's, Beau Price for 311. If I can just cut in over the applause for a moment to tell you that every single person almost in Old Trafford has got up, all the members, everyone round the ground. After 12 hours and 3/4, Simpson comes in through the lane of members, the door is opened, tremendous applause for the highest innings ever played on this historic ground at Old Trafford.
Simpson out for 311, not quite half of his side's 656 for 8 declared. But England replied in like manner, 174 for Dexter the captain and 256 for Ken Barrington, in a total of 611, which effectively condemned the match to a draw and retained Australia the Ashes. But there were a couple of significant moments from the drawn test at the Oval. With an Australian lead mounting and Dexter undecided about who should bowl, Fred Trueman, 297 test wickets to his name, took the ball. Redpath and Mackenzie went quickly, and then
367 for 8, 55 Vivas, 14 Hawk. And Trueman now to bowl to Hawk. Still these 4 men up close, 2 slips, 2 short legs. Trueman comes in, bowls from the edge of the crease, and that goes down the leg side. Hawk doesn't get a touch. Through to Parks. 367 for 8. Trueman with a bit of a scowl at the batsman. Doesn't even look friendly towards his fieldsman at the moment. In his 31st over, he's 2 wickets, wants a 3rd. Trueman in again, bowls to Hawk, and Hawk goes forward and he's caught. There's the 300. There was no nicer touch than Trueman congratulating Hawk. Hawk by Cowdrey.
Though the record has since been passed comfortably in these days of so many test matches, Trueman had become the first to take 300 test wickets. Characteristically, he predicted that the next man to do it would be bloody tired. But Yorkshiremen were not finished in this match. A young opening batsman was playing in his first test series.
Calling one fields, trying to tempt him outside the off stump. Calling comes in again, bowls, and that was a good ball. It swung just a little bit, late in flight, came on to Boycott, and he took it bat and pad. Calling usually bowls the outswinger. That seemed to me to come into him just a little bit, very late in flight, after those 2 that were wide outside the off stump. Boycott, a little hunched again. As Calling comes in, bowls to him, outside the off stump, going away, keeping rather low, and Boycott plays no stroke. Lets it go through to Grout. Slightly slower, it kept lower. He pulled his bat out of the stroke. 98, Boycott, swallowing 2 for the 100. 5 men saving the 1, 2 up for the catch. Calling comes in, bowls outside the off stump. There it is, 4 runs, wider covers left hand. It crosses the ropes, beats Laurie. Boycott 102. Arthur Wrigley passes me a note to say 100 in 3 hours 55 minutes with 9 fours, and I believe by no means the last Test 100 we'll see from this man.
No, there would be another 21 in a remarkable and somewhat enigmatic career. 15 months later, Fred Trueman's Test career had finished. England were in Australia, and it was the turn of a young Australian to set the cricketing world alight in his first Test.
Walters on 98 at 5 for 342. Allen to Walters. Walters forward defensively, down to Smith, still in mid-on. Allen to Walters, outside the leg stump. He gets the 100, here's his 100.
Magnificent effort by young Doug Walters, now receiving the congratulations from, first of all, Tom Beavers, and now practically all of the English team that are within distance of him. They're all coming in to take him now. He got his century with a magnificent shot off his toes, in between the ticking tacks onside court, ball shooting out to the mid-wicket boundary. Crowd still applauding. It was an inning wonderful to watch because there was so much adventure in it. He wasn't frightened to loft the ball, played his shots beautifully, and although he had to struggle over the last couple of runs in between the 90s and up to the 100s, he finally got there with that beautifully placed and beautifully played shot.
Now Allen bowls to Walters, and Walters down the pitch, plays into the covers, fielded by Edrich. Well, Walters got his 100 with that 4-through mid-wicket, which took him to 102. Beavers is 18, it's 5 for 346, and that's the end of Allen's over.
Doug Walters, still only 19, had made 100 in his first test in Brisbane. He was to go on to 155 and get to 3 figures again in the second test at Melbourne. But despite centuries in those games from Laurie, Burge, Edrich and Cowdrey as well, both games were drawn. The spell was broken in Sydney by the batting of Boycott, Edrich and particularly Bob Barber, whose 185 in England's 488 set up an innings victory when the advantage had been driven home by the bowling of David Brown in the first innings and Titmuss and Allen in the second. But in 3 weeks, Australia had redressed the balance with their own innings victory in Adelaide, Laurie and Simpson putting on 244 for their first wicket, Simpson making 225 and Mackenzie and Hawke sharing 13 wickets. In the final test in Melbourne, Australia's Bob Cowper ensured that a drawn series would keep the Ashes when he set out his stall for a long stay.
Now Cowper needs one for his 300. Knight just bringing the offside field around a little bit and Smith moving them in somewhat to try and stop the short single being taken. Knight bowls to Cowper and he plays and misses it one outside the off stump, and that was a good ball by Knight which beat Cowper. And it's not for a long time that we've seen Bob Cowper beaten outside the off stump. In the first half hour or so this morning he was beaten 2 or 3 times, but since then he's been right behind the ball and middling it. And that was a good ball by Knight to beat Cowper. And he moves in again to bowl, and Cowper drives. This one's through the covers. It's 4 runs, and there's his 300. Cowper 303, Stackpole 9, 5 for 531, and Cowper's 300 runs in 694 minutes with 24s.
Not long after, Barry Knight ended the marathon 12-hour innings, bowling him for 307. In England in 1968, it was Cowper's off-spin bowling that helped Australia to win in the first test at Old Trafford. Maybe his 6 wickets there prompted Bill Laurie to ask him to curb the free-scoring Colin Milburn.
Now there's a change of bowling. Cowper is coming on at the nursery end. Boycott is 37, Milburn 36. England are 84 for 1. And Bill Frindle points out that the last time Milburn played against this Australian attack, or the Australian attack that was for Northants last month, he scored 90 in 148 minutes with 15 fours. He looks round the field now. There's a short leg again, just forward of square, Redpath and a slip. They're the only 2 close fieldsmen. Cowper to bowl to Milburn. He trots in, bowls to him a bit short, and Milburn hooks this. Oh, he can pass that one back out of the grandstand. Oh, dear, dear, dear. He tried for a sighter, and it was a bit short. And Milburn turned round on it and belted it right into the back row of the seats in the grandstand balcony. Oh, dear. That went a very long way, very hard indeed. It was a good job the building was there. Cowper comes in, then bowls again to Milburn. He draws back and places very mildly back down the pitch to the bowler. That took Milburn to 42, the total to 90 for 1.
Milburn's story is, for such a genial character, pathetically tragic. He was, at this stage in his career, promising so much, but within a year a car crash was to cut that promise short, and he was to die at the early age of 48. But he was in his element that day at Lord's.
Again Mackenzie turns, comes in, a final leap, bowls, and Milburn goes very carefully forward, plays out to mid-off once more, playing most circumspectly. These His innings today has been outstanding, really, for his assessment of the hittable ball. Takes his very solid-looking guard, feet close together, right shoulder a little bit round. Mackenzie comes in, bowls to him, he goes forward, steers the square on the offside. They have to hurry here to get the single to cover point, but they've taken it. At the end of the over, it takes Melbourne to 83, the total to 142 for one. Boycott has 46, and this means that this morning England have made 89 runs in, let me see, 82 minutes.
And John, it's not only the runs they've made, it's the way they've made them. Milburn in particular has played some really delicious shots. Been worth coming a long way to see Milburn bat this morning.
It's Gleeson now to bowl to him from the pavilion end. Comes in, bowls pitched up. Milburn goes cautiously forward and plays back down the pitch. It's not a question of who he's making the runs for. I think this has transcended any sort of loyalties or partisan spirit. It's just been a really heartwarming innings. Gleeson comes in, bowls again to Milburn. Milburn goes forward and plays out on the onside, reaching a long way forward. One could tell subsequently that it was the off break because it spun away, curled away off the bat to the onside. But I doubt if Milburn was quite certain, and he's not, of course, usually at his happiest against slow bowling. Gleeson comes in, bowls again. Little short, and he's hooked that high, and the fieldsman's under it. Walters, he's caught him. Wasn't a good ball. Caught by Gleeson in front of the tavern, by Walters in front of the tavern stand. And Milburn is out. Caught, Walters, bowled, Gleeson, 83.
Despite the efforts of Milburn and David Brown, whose 5 wickets bundled Australia out for 78, the rain and hail ensured a draw, even though Australia did lose 4 wickets following on. Draws followed at Edgbaston and Headingley, so that yet again England had lost their chance to win back the Ashes. But there was still the chance to square the series with a win at the Oval. Big hundreds from Edrich and D'Oliveira helped England to 494, and then Snow and Brown, backed up by the spin of Illingworth and Underwood, won them a first innings lead of 170. Australia were eventually set 352 and had lost 2 wickets cheaply before the final day began. At lunch they were 86 for 5 when the heavens opened, to the extent that when the rain stopped the Oval resembled a lake, and few people believed that any further play could be possible. But the England captain Colin Cowdrey encouraged ground staff and volunteers in the most remarkable mopping-up operation. Still, when the ground was fit again for play, only 75 minutes remained for England to take those last 5 wickets. For a long time there was no breakthrough, but then D'Oliveira bowled Jarman, and Mallet came in to join Inverarity.
So it's the phlegmatic Mallet, who had a good look round the field, didn't have far to look, settles in, and Underwood comes up, and he's caught at short leg by Brown. Mallet is out, that ball popped, Brown took the catch literally off the bat. The second short leg from the left, I suppose you would describe that. And at last, Underwood got one to pop, and the close-in fielders got the catch that they've been striving for so long. So it's 110 for 7. A real cliffhanger of a finish now, with England left with 30 minutes exactly to get these last 3 Australian wickets. And it is Mackenzie coming out to bat, Gleeson and Connolly to follow, a word from Trevor Bailey, and then for the last time on this tour, rather sadly, it'll be our old friend Alan McGilvray, and a jolly happy return trip to Australia.
Well, that ball from Underwood bit and stopped. Mallet played an intended dead bat shot, but it volleyed off his bat sufficiently to carry nicely to Brown at forward short leg. And the pitch now is beginning to become difficult, and of course in the situation from the Australian batting angle, it is a very, very tense situation indeed. Particularly, though the last 2 lasted a long time in the first innings, in this situation it's very, very tense indeed, and the odds are pretty open, slightly possibly in England's favour.
Thank you, Bob Hudson, for your kind words. Now back it's Underwood now to bowl to Mackenzie. Mackenzie forward and hits the inside of the bat, then skids up onto the chest of Knott. He was looking for it the other way. It came in to him, and it caught the bat and then the chest as it bounced high up over the pitch. Now, that's a fairly ominous sign for the Australians. The wicket now, as Trevor indicated, taking a little bit of bite. And Mackenzie searched for that one, just found the edge, but now it's Underwood again to bowl to Mackenzie, and Mackenzie stands up straight and lets the ball hit the bat and puts it down onto the ground. Every fieldsman, and that's natural, round the bat, 9 of them in all, and Underwood, bowling from the pavilion end, runs of no consequence, except that Inverarity has 50 against his name, 7 for 110, and Underwood again finds Mackenzie lunging at that ball. He was hoping it wouldn't lift. It didn't. It came through of normal height, and he played it down on the ground to Brown. Well, all those men on the onside could touch hands. They're so close. On the offside, much the same. 5 on the offside. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the offside, 4 on the onside as Underwood bowls to Mackenzie. Mackenzie forward, and he hits it straight into the ground, and Edrich at short point fields. It's very difficult, as I heard Bob Hudson say, to place these fieldsmen. Let's say there's a complete ring of 9 fieldsmen around the bat from fine leg down to fine slip. And back comes Underwood. Bowls to Mackenzie. Mackenzie forward, and it's another lovely catch. This is a good catch by Brown. Yes, he caught that and caught it well. That was low down. Took it almost off the ground. He quickly picked it up and ran back to the umpire appealing why he did. No need to, because Mackenzie walked. But the catch was well made, just moving forward. He took it inches from the ground, going in underneath it. His fingers would have hit the ground, the ball hitting his fingers, and he made a splendid catch of that to dismiss Mackenzie, who also failed to score. Now the Australians are in dire trouble now with but Gleeson and Connolly to follow, and some a little under half an hour, about 27 minutes of play.
15 of those minutes ticked away, with John Gleeson now batting with the heroic John Inverarity.
Well, one hates to think of the tension there must be in the Australian dressing room at the present moment, and the unfortunate Connolly with his pads on. However philosophical he is, he must be extremely nervous at the present time. An earnest consultation between Inverarity and Gleeson, possibly on what to do. They may be giving the light a go, I don't know.
I'm not deciding upon anything there. They might have talked about it, but they wouldn't certainly win a light appeal there. Now it's Underwood to bowl over the wicket now to Gleeson. And his first ball, Gleeson plays forward to it and keeps it down on the ground, and it's played back along the pitch. So we have now showing on the clock 13 minutes of play, 2 wickets for England to get to defeat Australia in this final test match. 8 for 120 the score, and Underwood bowls to Gleeson. Gleeson lets it hit him on the tail. I was trying to find a word, but it came up and he was hoping it hit him on the pad, but it hit him on the back, and so it's flipped away down to fine leg. He couldn't run, he made no attempt to play it, and so Underwood continues to bowl left arm over the wicket. Bowls to Gleeson, and Gleeson lets this ball go. Very good judgment. My goodness, I thought that was on its way to the off stump. It went very close to it. Must have made that bail shudder a little bit as it went past. It flipped into the hands of Knott without Gleeson making an attempt to play it. And Underwood runs in. Bowls to Gleeson. Gleeson forward, and he sandwiches the ball down on the ground onto his pad. And for some spectators just below me now, they thought that ball was trickling back onto the stumps. Actually, it remained in about the crease area. Now Underwood decides to bowl left arm round the wicket, and umpire Elliott indicates to Gleeson he's coming in from that side. And Underwood goes in now to bowl to Gleeson. And Gleeson forward, and he's bowled him, let it go, and he clean bowled him. He made no attempt to play it. It was dead on line all the way. He left his bat on his shoulder, and he found his off stump flat on the ground.
I think Cowdery deserves a lot of applause for that particular wicket, because just before the previous ball, he signalled to Underwood to change from over the wicket to round the wicket. Underwood did so, and the result was the wicket. So it was a very shrewd move by the English captain. If of course, he'd bowled it from over the wicket, it would have, the same ball, it would have missed comfortably. But bowling from round the wicket, it came on in and just hit the off stump. A very, very shrewd move by the England captain, and a fine delivery by Underwood.
Connolly surprised everybody in the first innings by batting for 54 minutes. Inverarity, first in, is still not out with 55. 10 minutes to go, and Australia so many runs behind it doesn't matter. 232. Can England take 1 wicket in 10 minutes? The entire England side except the bowler up in the close catching positions, and all within 3 or 4 yards of Connolly, looking into his eyes, breathing down his neck, and he goes out and prods the pitch, gives it a little sweep with his bat, and a bit of a prod about the length spot, steps back, takes guard, feeling much less cool than he looks, I'm sure. And Underwood comes in, bowls to Connolly right up to him, and the ball pops out into the close field. The end of the over, and Underwood has achieved the best bowling figures of his Test career, 6 for 50.
Another 5 minutes went by, and it was Underwood to Inverarity.
Well, of course, you can't ask for anything much more exciting than this. It's very, very tense indeed. I suppose there are 3 possible overs to go, and I would have thought Inverarity's job now would be to try and keep out Underwood at all costs, because Underwood is the main threat.
This is the same situation as England were in the West Indies in the last Test there, of course, the other way round. And now Underwood comes in and bowls, and Inverarity covers up, going on the backstroke there and playing out on the offside. Now that held, it didn't turn much, but he's bowling round the wicket. It just about held, more or less straightened, and Inverarity marks out the line of the leg stump with the toe of his boot, and Underwood comes in, bowls to him again. He goes onto the back foot and plays very comfortably back down the pitch. Underwood hammering away, bustling back to his mark, tossing the ball from hand to hand. Nervous strain on both sides now. So, situation in which a bowler could press too much. Underwood comes in, bowls, and is padded away and he's out. Played deliberately with his pad, Inverarity. Just missed carrying his back to a ball that just about straightened. Inverarity is LBW, bowled Underwood, and any moment now Bill Frindle will tell me how many England have won by, but they've won.
227.
They've won by 227. Australia retain the Ashes, but England, 226 they've won by. Australia retain the Ashes, but England have tied the series and perhaps made good some of their disappointments from the Test at Lord's and Edgbaston.
Surely Underwood's greatest moment, he finished with 7 for 50. Throughout the 60s, the Ashes had stayed with Australia, though 3 series had been drawn. Ray Illingworth was the man chosen to lead England to Australia in 1970-71 to reclaim them. In the first 2 tests there were runs aplenty, including 100 for Greg Chappell in his first Test innings. The 3rd Test was completely washed out, which incidentally led to the playing of the world's first one-day international, and an extra Test was agreed on for Melbourne. But before that, England had a 299-run victory in Sydney, where Boycott made 77 and 142, and John Snow took 7 for 40 in the second innings. Snow had become something of a controversial figure in Australia, and more was to follow, but he was Illingworth's main weapon, and the first 3 tests had already brought him 22 wickets when Brian Johnston spoke to him after his Sydney triumph.
You didn't bowl quite so many bumpers today, I don't think, but you still regard this as a perfectly legitimate way of bowling, don't you?
Of course, I always do, Brian. Everything's legitimate, really.
Well, what I was really leading up to, the one, in fact, you got Mackenzie was a perfectly well pitched up ball, wasn't it?
Yes, Graham was a bit unfortunate. It was a very fair length ball, and he played forward to it, came right forward to it, and it went up like a lift, and it just hit him in the face. He got no chance, really. And he hit anybody any batsman even, if they'd been playing a ball. It's very unfortunate, very nasty, you know.
Yeah, it's a nasty thing to happen. Now, this is your first visit out in Australia. I mean, are the conditions suiting you better? I mean, you've already got 22 wickets in the series. Do you find it easier bowling out here, for instance, than you did in the West Indies? You did well enough there.
I don't find it easier. I think the wickets are a bit slower, if anything, they were in the West Indies. And, of course, we were bowling with English balls out in the West Indies as well, with a bit more seam on, which made a difference, I think. I like bowling overseas, personally, because I think things are a lot more consistent. You know you're going to play for a start, and it's fairly consistently warm, and also you have a sort of set unit you're playing with as a side, you know, a touring side, as such a party. And I don't know, I think it's easy to get loose, and the wickets perhaps are a bit quicker, a bit fancier.
You must have been a bit cheered today by our slip catching. I've never seen 2 better catches than
Bob. Great.
Well, this is something for you to know. You know you've got the best wicketkeeper in the world, and if you've got some slip fielders as well, you'll be all right, won't you?
Well, I think they did well to lurk into there, didn't they, really, Bob and Peter? They did
tremendous.
Not usually slips, but they caught 2 tremendous catches.
I suppose you wouldn't forgive me if I didn't ask you about your batting. A very useful 37. You like batting out here, don't you?
Well, I like batting. It's easier than bowling, Brian. But yeah, I do. I think it's much easier out here than bowling, you know. And I think when you bowl out here, you know, you sweat away and you see batsmen just sort of playing the ball and getting away with it, and you think, well, blow this. I'm going to lurk about for a bit as
but
well.
The interesting thing is you used to play the spinners pretty well in the West Indies, but used your pads a lot. Now you don't use your pads so much, and you're still getting away with it against Beeson. Now, how are you doing this? Are you reading him?
No, I'm mowing him over mid-wicket.
The extra test in Melbourne was a high-scoring draw, as was the 6th test in Adelaide, so England had still not made sure of the Ashes when they went into the 7th test back in Sydney again. There it was the spinners Jenner and O'Keefe who were mainly responsible for England's being bowled out for 184. Australia was still 6 runs behind at the fall of the 7th wicket. That brought in Terry Jenner, who was to be hit by a Snow bouncer. Snow was warned by umpire Lou Rowan and then grabbed by a spectator on the boundary. Beer cans were thrown, and Ray Illingworth led his side off the field.
It's an unprecedented position, this. The 2 batsmen are staying out there. The 2 umpires have gone off to decide what to do. England refusing to go on. And I'm in despair that such a thing could happen in a test match. Who's ever wrong, it could be England, it could be Australia, but this shouldn't be really allowed to happen. Lindsay, I don't know if you're as distressed as I am.
Yes, well, I would have hoped that this type of thing would never have happened in Australia. I don't know where the blame really lies. First of all, it lies with the crowd, because this is a very unruly behaviour and should never have taken place. No walk down to the fence, and it looked as though everything was going to be all right. A couple of the spectators around the fence shook hands with him, but then we saw someone who obviously has been affected by the refreshment during the afternoon actually grabbed at Snow's shirt, and there was some sort of a little scuffle there. This man was pulled back by some of the other spectators, and then more beer cans started to come onto the ground, and Illingworth has led the men off. Well, now, I just don't know what the position is here. Whether the game will go on this evening, I don't know. There's about 50 minutes due for play. The 2 umpires are coming back onto the ground. There's something like about 20 policemen or 20-odd policemen going around the outside trying to get rid of the cans from the field. There's about, I suppose, another 20 or 30 or 40 spectators on the ground, some of whom appear to be trying to get rid of the cans, but I would say that if anything happens here this evening, I'd be really doubtful if the play would go on. 2 umpires coming back onto the oval. The 2 batsmen have been on the middle of the oval during the whole of this set-up, and now some announcement has been made over the loudspeaker system.
Lindsay, it was Alan Barnes, the secretary, saying that the ground will be cleared and that the play will continue. In other words, the police have come on, they're going to remove the beer cans, and the game will continue. And here comes the England side out again, being led by Ray Illingworth. You can listen to their reception. The batsmen, by the way, never left the middle. The 2 umpires have gone out there, and the police are now standing inside the ground to stop, I suppose, any more beer cans hitting anybody on the field. At the moment, no more have been thrown. Those on the ground have been picked up by police and have been taken away. Willis has been sent down to field in the position where Snow was, underneath the little hill away to our left. This is not the main hill, but this is where it all started. And Lindsay's quite right, but when I said a nice gesture's going on down there, someone was patting Snow on the back and shaking his hands, and there was a little bit of applause, and then one man grabbed him by the shirt, and I don't know then what went on. Snow has now gone down to 3rd man in front of the players' pavilion, where it's no doubt going to be more peaceful, and Willis is bravely turning his back on the crowd there. So let's hope that this is a thing which is going to be quickly forgotten and will never happen again, whatever the rights or wrongs.
Jenner did eventually return, and with 30 runs helped his side to a lead of 80. But an all-round batting performance by England left Australia 223 to win, with plenty of time. Early on, Snow had a collision with the boundary fence itself and had to depart with a broken hand. But all the other bowlers, and particularly the captain, did their bit, until Australia, still needing 65 to hold on to the Ashes, had their last pair together.
Jenner, one fancies, would be happier if he's playing a few strokes. We're going to have another fielder up in the short leg position. Luckhurst coming in. No, not in the short leg position at all, at point. He's at point, right in, very close in, the oldest of old-fashioned points, and a silly point as well. So Jenner hedged round the moment by 3 fielders there as this one from Underwood goes off his glove down towards third man, and Lever's chasing it up towards the hill. They'll take 2 here. He dabbed forward at that one and hit him, I think, off his glove and went down there through where slip would be. It wouldn't have been a chance. And it goes up to the hill there. Lever returns and it's 2 more runs. So Jenner goes to 4. That's 9 for 160. So that is 63 runs. 63 runs still needed. 1 wicket to fall. Underwood bowling this time to Dell, still with these, Jenner, still with these 2 men very close in on the outside. Bowls this one, and Jenner goes to sweep that one. It's going up in the air, but he goes off his pad. And excitement from the crowd has knocked dashes for it, but this went off his pad as he tried the sweep which has cost so many wickets in this match. People being caught off the top edge, bowl round behind the legs, and so on. Jenner, no exception there, not connecting with that, hitting on his pad and shooting up in the air. Hampshire there at short leg for a possible miscue. No one deep down at square leg there, so it's safe to that extent. In comes Underwood again now to bowl to Jenner. Bowls this through wide the crease, a quicker one, and he goes off bat and pad. He's caught. He's out caught. Underwood has got the wicket. He was caught there by Fletcher at Scilly Point, and England have won the Ashes. England have won the Ashes back after 12 years, and Illingworth is being cheered off by his team. It looks a bit precarious. Illingworth is being led off there by his team, and the police are stopping someone coming up there to clap him on the back, and a small boy is being chased by 2 policemen, but it's certainly Illingworth's day, being cheered off. He looks as if he'll fall off at any moment, and a small boy runs round and pats him on the back, and the policeman tries to stop the small boy doing it, but the small boy has had his day. And another one runs along with a white flag saying England on it.